Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, and today I'll be talking about the Judgment card. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. The best way to support the podcast right now is to listen daily, rate, review, and to follow or subscribe in your chosen podcast app. The next best way is to check out my Patreon. If you support me there, you get early access to upcoming podcast episode topics, digital downloads I've created, and monthly tarot hangouts with me and other listeners. The link is in the show notes to check that out. You can always go to my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot for all the latest information related to the podcast and to find images of the cards that I pull in each episode. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, I'd love to see you at one of my Let's Talk Tarot meetup group events where we bring some of our favorite decks and play around with tarot and oracle decks together. Our next event is on February 24th at 5 p.m. at the Bonnie Lake Library. We'll be working on creating our own tarot cards. I'll bring all the supplies and guide you through the magical process. You can use the meetup link in the show notes or on my website to check out further details on the event and RSVP. All right, so let's get into the main discussion. So welcome to season 3 of the podcast. In the first season, I introduced tarot through talking about oracle versus tarot cards, myths of tarot, how to find a deck, reading for yourself versus others, and much more. In season 2, I went through the first 13 cards of the Major Arcana, one per episode, and now we're into season 3, where I'm going through the final 9 cards in the Major Arcana and then talking about each suit. And today, as I said, I'll be talking about the Judgment card, which is the second to last Major Arcana card. So we're almost done with all the Major Arcana cards. All right, so Judgment, the number associated with this in the Major Arcana is 20, and in numerology for the number 20, is all about new beginnings, rebirth, test of patience, surrounded by gentle, positive, angelic energies and harmony. Traits associated with 20 are resurrection or reincarnation, humbleness, patience, protection, peace, and diplomatic. All right, so when we see the Judgment card come up in the deck, often we see depicted angels, mountains, and trumpets. I have 4 different decks I'm going to be talking about in this episode today, and I would say actually, well, one of them sort of has an angels in it, but other than that, they have some different representations, which I'm excited about. So I'm going to describe some of the cards right now. So in the Anima Mundi deck, for the Judgment card, there's a bird that's flying down, like towards the ground is what it looks like. It takes up the whole middle portion of the card, and behind it are stars in the sky with kind of darker sky at the top and lighter at the bottom. It looks like it's like diving to catch something, or like it looks very determined. It looks like some kind of bird of prey, like a falcon or an osprey or a hawk or something like that. I'm not sure which kind it is. But I'll get into that once I open up the deck guidebook and when we get to the meanings section. In the Goddess of Love Tarot deck by Gabriella Herstick and illustrated by Julia Popescu, there is a goddess figurine in the middle of the card. There's like a red ruby as well. There's lots of like what are they called? Rose quartz crystals that I see in the card. There's flames, there's a red rose, and then kind of flanking the goddess at the top are 2 like dark colored snakes. So that is that card, and again, I'll figure out what goddess it is when we look in the actual tarot deck guidebook, but right now we're just looking at the cards and seeing what we can glean from them. In the Therapist Who Tarot deck by Drea Bloom and Rebecca Bloom, in this card there's depicted, so this is the one that does have angels in it, I would say. Looks like there's like 3 figures that have pink wings in the middle of the card, and then they're sort of in a sphere, And then on either side of the angels, or sort of, I guess, sort of in front of them almost, are different vertical lines. On the left side of the card, they're like a pinky purple, like darker. And on the right side of the card, they're more yellow and orangey and light pink. And on this card, there's a word below the title of the card. So the card is Judgment, the title, and then it says Awakening. And all of these have the Roman numerals for 20 on them on the card. And then on the back of this card, it has questions, which again I'll get more into in the meaning section. So we'll talk about those then. And then in the Sacerobito Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington, we have what looks like a person kind of like cocooned or wrapped up in like a bunch of what look like really soft blankets. Like it looks super cozy. You can really just see their face, and then you see like a big pink and kind of purpley, what looks like again like a big fluffy blanket wrapped around them, and then sort of in the background you have like pink, I don't know, sky or wall or something like that. So it's a very like pink, makes me think of kind of like a self-love kind of card. Yeah, so that's sort of what I see when I look at the cards. And again, like common depictions of this card are like angels or angels with like a trumpet. And then sometimes there's mountains in the background. So let's get into the meanings of the card. So Judgment, I realize, right, we use the word judgment a lot in the English language, but the judgment card is not so much about judging other people or judging ourselves. In the sort of traditional Rider-Waite depiction of the card, it does show like an angel, like from Christian myths. It talks about, so this is, I'm reading from the Taschen book, the Library of Esoterica Tarot book by Taschen. It says the card illustrates several forms of final judgment as depicted in varying mythologies. Some decks showcase the Christian myths with figures rising up from the grave at the sound of the trumpet of God's messenger, the Archangel Gabriel. Arms raised, they await the weighing of their actions in life, the scales determining their entrance to either heaven or hell. In the background of most of the cards, an insurmountable mountain range is shown, signifying that there's no avoidance of judgment. It is immovable. The card is often associated with Pluto, ruler of the underworld, and in this way signifies not only endings but new beginnings, new life, rebirth, and resurrection. So the Judgment card often signifies this moment of like reflection and evaluation, so almost like assessment. Because again, if you think about in the like Christian myth, it's like this judgment again, like at the gates, or when you pass on and you're sort of awaiting judgment. So it's sort of this like almost like limbo period where something is going to happen and you're going to find something out. So Judgment does not punish. Instead, it offers the opportunity for balanced assessment and absolution. It demands inner honesty and clarity of motive in all action moving forward. It also signifies a reawakening, a refined sense of direction, a positive change that affects the future outcome. Judgment reminds one of choice and consequence, the importance of clear decision-making in the moments where the path splits in two. It calls for a higher level of consciousness and service of the greater good. Judgment purges, cleanses, and renews, which was also like a lot about what the numerology for 20 was about, like resurrection, new beginnings, rebirth, harmony, this sort of like diplomatic or like assessment, this like engaging in a discussion before a decision is made, right? That's sort of what diplomatic, diplomatic like conversations are about, or diplomacy is about in general, sort of trying to find a compromise often, or sort of a way that both sides can agree to something. So let's look in some of our other books that I have. So, in the Fearless Tarot by Elliot Adam, How to Give a Positive Reading in Any Situation, they talk about Judgment card as rebirth, renewal, and restoration. It represents reawakening and returning to life after loss, which, again, if you think about kind of the Christian myth or what's happening with the angel blowing the trumpet, it's like, okay, you've died, then you're in this sort of space um, where something's going to happen and you're trying to, right, like there has been loss, you have lost, and then you're trying to figure out what's going to happen next, or, right, someone else is trying to figure out what's going to happen next to you, perhaps. So often when people see this card, they talk about that they're afraid that somehow means that they're being judged, right? Again, that's sort of what I talked about earlier. It says the only judgment this card decrees is that you are worthy to rise again and make your life as joyful, healthy, and full as it can be. Judgment represents your ability to abandon the thoughts, habits, and attitudes that keep your mind in death consciousness. So again, this is becoming sort of more of like a metaphorical death, right? Moving away from the literal of the Christian depiction and moving into sort of like okay, what happens when we end cycles maybe, or when something, right, maybe we've lost something or lost a part of ourselves or have decided to let something go. And then it's sort of like, okay, now let's assess. Let's see what we're going to do in the future. It talks about fear, hopelessness, avoidance, procrastination, and self-limiting behaviors. These are the mental graves that it's time to step out of now. Do you wish you could break away from the depressive feeling that you are slogging through life like the walking dead? Have you been avoiding a personal goal that promises to make your life better because you're afraid of failing? Have you forgotten that you still have the power to make your dreams come true? A luminous angel emerges from the clouds, blowing the golden trumpet of life. So again, the sort of traditional Rider-Waite depiction of the card. It talks about that its brazen notes resonate around the whole earth. Angels throughout the tarot symbolize your higher self. The notes blown from the trumpet symbolize that you're going to be hearing your higher self loud and clear. Again, that clarity. All that appeared dead, lost, and forgotten will rise again, reborn and revived. A new day has dawned. The graves are cast aside, and judgment declares there is still life to live. So it's almost this, again, almost this like turning point or this pause time where you're deciding what's next, right? Maybe you've had dreams abandoned or goals forsaken or hopes crushed. And it talks about that all these trials were necessary to make you the person you are today, but it wasn't for nothing, right? The angel is the voice in your head that says, what am I doing? I deserve better. Am I ready to get the most out of life? When judgment appears, your best self is giving you a wake-up call. It's time to get up and step out of the self-imposed grave your mind has been confined to. Today is the time to push past self-limiting behaviors about your potential and worth. Breathe new life into projects and dreams long thought dead. You can start living the life you want now, today, at this moment, if you summon the courage to step up and live consciously. Rise up like the fiery phoenix out of the ashes. Everything in nature changes and dies. It can be sad to look back at the times when something felt important, like loss, or you felt forsaken, but remember, everything in nature reflects rebirth. This includes you. This is the divine and natural law, and this is the benevolent judgment of the universe. So again, it's not this sort of scary, like, in my opinion, like top-down judgment. It's like assessing or auditing, right? Like things with yourself and maybe things you've said you were going to do, or maybe habits you said you wanted to change this year, and maybe you've fallen back into some old patterns. And maybe this again is a time to reassess, to pause, to check in with yourself, and to decide, okay, am I going to get back on it? Are these goals important enough to me? Are these habits important enough to me that I want to move forward and keep doing them every day or commit to that? Or am I ready to let them go and to move into something else? Maybe I thought this would be the thing that helped, or the thing that moved me forward, or the thing that I needed, and maybe it wasn't, right? And it's okay to let go of that too. In the Tarot for Change book, Using the Cards for Self-Care, Acceptance, and Growth by Jessica Dorr, they talk about that there's two ways to read the Judgment card in tarot. One is a call to adventure and as a resurrection. So as a call to adventure is an invitation to change, that is to leave behind an old way for a new one, to forget who you are not and remember who you are. Old stories remind us that hearing the call is not the same as answering. Many heroes have refused to call at first, sometimes multiple times, just as many of us have declined opportunities to grow until we're ready. Answering the call requires a very specific psychological task, which is that we forget anything that isn't useful to the journey and remember everything that is. This is where mindfulness training can come in. It's also where we start to work with the metaphor of resurrection, which can also sometimes be depicted in the cards. All right, I'm going to pause there on that part. But again, the secret told by Judgment is that we must stay connected to the meaning that endures beyond the boundaries of death, time, and history. That we forget what Joseph Campbell called the inhuman claims placed upon us by the systems under which we live, and remember that our life has meaning, even if that meaning must stay at least somewhat a mystery. That we remember every life has meaning, right? So if you think about Judgment as carrying both the metaphor of adventure and resurrection, so it might ask us, how do we continue to live life in accordance with what we hold to be right and true, even as the world crumbles around us? How do we stay doing what's right, even when it sometimes seems that right is futile in the face of forces of exploitation and destruction that appear to be larger than life? Every cry for climate justice, racial justice, and all other forms of social justice is a call to adventure, and each day we stand at the crossroads, depicted by the symbol of the cross and the flag of the judgment angel, given the opportunity to refuse the call or answer it. What we need to do in order to choose the latter is to forget all that isn't useful to that journey and remember all that is. The limitations of being alive in a human body means that we have finite levels of attention and capacities for empathy, and that means that we do have to consciously forget certain things in order to function. But in order to continuously move forward, we have to remember the deep care for one another that makes us human, what constitutes the right thing, and a sense of belonging to something greater than the isolated flesh of the self. So again, that last bit was from the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dorr, which feels very apt right now, in a time where I not necessarily a lot of hope that people are feeling, right? It's sort of saying like, okay, assess what's important to you, what are your values, and then do it, right? Like, don't just think about it, don't just say you're going to do 10 things or commit to 10 causes and try to do them all. It's sort of like, okay, like what's the one right now that feels super important or relevant, and do the thing, right? Call your representatives, go to the protest, do the thing, right? Whatever it is that you're feeling called to right now, do it, commit, right? It can be scary. You might not know where it's going to lead. It might feel hard to do all the things, but really we can't do all the things, right? That's the part where we're limited by the time constraints or, right, our physical bodies sometimes, that we can't do it all. We can't commit to every cause. And that we have to also like find, right, part of that reflection and assessment is also in sort of like building our own resilience, I think, in that we have to, right, when you live by those values or you make decisions based off of those, that really helps fuel us to continue forward with activism and advocacy, even when times feel maybe hopeless or challenging, or we feel like we're only at the beginning and how are we going to keep doing this forever? It's almost like, okay, don't worry about that. Just focus on the here and now. Focus on the thing that's important today. And then, right, tomorrow, we'll focus on the thing that's important tomorrow. All right, let's get into some of the descriptions for some of the cards that I talked about earlier. So in the Anima Mundi deck, I talked about the bird that's on the card. So looking at the deck guidebook, it is a golden eagle, and it says you're drawing close to the start of something new, a rebirth of some sort. But in order for that to happen, a period of reflection and reevaluation is required. Take this time to look back on your past, purge yourself of past deeds, and move on to bigger and better things. Okay? When we look at the Therapist Who Tarot deck, again, it says awakening is the word associated with this card. And the questions on the back say, what is limiting your growth? How are you keeping yourself small? And in what area of your life do you feel trapped? So again, thinking about that reflection time, right? How do you want to move forward? Where are you feeling limited? Where do you want to put your attention right now? When we look at the Sacerdote Tarot deck, this is the one that has the figure all wrapped up, looking cozy in a blanket. And they talk about that the Judgment card represents knowing what you want and taking responsibility for your actions in life. It is a card of rebirth, a new beginnings, and accepting of past mistakes and actions. Judgment is a card of release and reconciliation. It's an inner calling and possibly a signal of impending judgment, such as that of postponed decisions. This card is commonly illustrated with an angel blowing a trumpet and delivering judgment onto those below. I chose to paint a woman emerging from a pile of blankets like an insect out of a cocoon. She is the master and judge of her own transformation. And there are two quotes associated with this card in this tarot deck guidebook. The first one is by Socrates, and it says, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." The second quote is by Louis L'Amour, and it says, "There will be a time when you believe everything is finished. That will be the beginning." I like that. Okay, and then the last card that we talked about is the Goddess of Love Tarot deck. And so for this one, for Judgment, there's a couple of different things on the card. There's a goddess, there's snakes, there's a rose, there's rose quartz, there's flames. It's a very pinky, orange, red card. And Gabrielle Hersted talks about the key of judgment, must like the Hierophant, is often seen in terms of Christianity and patriarchy. But this is the esoteric, the awakening that happens when your beliefs about the possibilities of the universe and your fixed identities are sacrificed in the primal fire of existence. Judgment is also the initiation that comes from the flesh. It's the rebirth that happens after releasing old beliefs around sexuality that are rooted in guilt and shame. Judgment is the power of the divine erotic channeled through the holy whore, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. The holy whore is Inanna and Ishtar, Babylon, and the erotic votaries and temple priestesses who have worshipped the erotic divine feminine over time. She is the power of the sexual mysteries to dissolve old identities through the fire power of orgasm and pleasure, to raise you as the phoenix from the ashes. The holy whore is turned on by all of its existence. Judgment may signify the purification that comes from the ending of one cycle and the beginning of another. This often feels painful, the soul-wrenching contraction that happens before expansion. Judgment also indicates a new way of being, a soul transformation through the powers of sexuality. Consider an erotic experience or initiation that changed you. Judgment is the current of sexual magic that you can utilize, raise, and work with to alchemize your circumstances and reclaim your erotic power as service to the goddess of love and lust. The affirmation associated with this card is, "I offer it all to the goddess of love. I am reborn through fire." And the journal question asks, how am I being initiated and reborn through the mysteries of the goddess of love? So there's 4 different takes on the Judgment card. And let's dive in and see what the cards have to say today on the theme of judgment. Okay, so today I'm pulling from the Wild Kuan Yin Oracle, the Velvet Goddess edition by Lana Fairchild, and I pulled the Priestess of Perfect Pairing Makes the Match, number 37 in this deck. And this is an oracle deck, so it has its own structure. It doesn't align necessarily with the numbers with tarot. So in this one, it talks a little bit about like romantic matches, but I am curious more in like metaphorical or other types of matches. So I'm going to read some of those from related to this card. This deck has a lot of information per card, so I'm just going to be pulling excerpts from it instead of reading all of it because that would be a while. There's probably between 5 to 10 pages on like a chapter size book about each card. So it talks about with this card, the Oracle of the Priestess of Perfect Pairing Makes the Match comes as a signifier of divine intervention in matters of relationships. She will bring together those who create opportunities for healing and learning through relationships. The relationship itself will become the teacher and the healer. How much growth and development each person takes from that connection is up to their willingness to grow. The blessings of the Divine Mother for relationship healing are for inner healing as well as healing of relationship issues between you and another. Whomever is in your life right now is there for a reason. That reason is to learn. Your learning may simply be that. You need to let go and move on. It may be about healing self-esteem and learning to speak your truth. It may also be about learning to live in accordance with your own values, or to stop judging yourself or another and find a more helpful and higher truth by looking at your situation through the eyes of compassion. Any relationship in your life offers you an opportunity to heal something. When that is healed, you will either move forward together more consciously and with less pain, or you will let go completely, opening up for a new love at a higher and more refined vibration where you can learn new lessons, perhaps even ones that involve more joy and less suffering. The Oracle of the Priestess of Perfect Pairing Makes the Match brings the right person to you at the right time. If you've been asking for a partnership of a different kind, someone to help you with work, sponsorship, a mentor or a teacher, an employer, or so on, the Oracle brings you the message that this is being sorted out for you and will manifest at the right time, more than likely sooner than you think. Again, let intuition rather than logic guide the way. Trust your feeling. You'll know who's right and what's right for you at the time. With this oracle comes general guidance for all circumstances and situations. It is advised that you let the heart lead the way. Instead of deciding straight away what a person or connection is meant to teach you, be willing to cultivate some patience along with your curiosity. Allow yourself to be shown, let the relationship reveal itself to you, and be open to perceive what is rather than attempting to shape it according to your will. Then you will see the truth of what is in your life and how you can grow it. You will accept the divine gift because you will begin to understand what it is and receive its healing grace. All relationships are given for a particular purpose and are not based on punishment, but on what will help you attain your soul goals of freedom, wisdom, compassion, and love. Okay, I'm going to end there for today. Links for the tarot decks that I talk about will be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or find where to purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.